So I will say that this news video will end with news on AEW, and we will start with news back with NXT, specifically the Dyad, or the former Grizzled Young Veterans, as I believe it was over the weekend or maybe on Monday, where we got a report that the Dyad were requesting their release from WWE, and I was surprised because of how featured Rip Fowler and I'll just call them the Grizzled Young Veterans, that the two of them have been as members of the Schism, but I guess maybe they just don't like the direction that they're going. I don't understand, or maybe they want to be featured more, and they don't like how they are like secondary characters to Ava and Joe Gacy. Your guess is as good as mine, but right now, they are not gone from the company as of yet because, according to a report, they were featured on the most recent Level Up taping as a group. So they're still here for now. But can you take it a step further and say it's going to be that case, in a not too distant future? No, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, so it's hard to say that that the release would be taken care of this week with all the other stuff going on. Just would point that out. With everything else going on, it's hard to believe. It would be hard to believe that would be the case. Speaking of everything going on, there was a report on Tuesday, yesterday, about Vince being as actively involved as he was on Raw and with Raw. Now, there's a bit of optimism for SmackDown, and it's a test run for SmackDown, because the idea is that Vince was as active on Raw as he was because Vince was in the area. Simple as that. Vince was in the area. Vince was as actively involved in Raw because he was in the area. Because Raw was in Los Angeles, Raw was in California, WrestleMania was in California, Vince was there for WrestleMania. But if Vince commutes up to Portland for SmackDown, then it's bad news, because a lot of fans believe that WWE lied and that Vince is in control, that Vince is back in control, that Triple H does not have as much control as he did when Vince was gone or before the merger, that the merger is a mistake now because Vince is back in control. Vince is going to ruin the company again. And you go back to the conversation, the ranting and raving that I did yesterday. I still completely agree that if Vince has any more control than he did, and that Triple H lost control, then it's a mistake, and WWE should have learned their lesson and kept Vince away from programming, because Vince handling day-to-day operations of the business side of things is one thing. Vince should have no power over creative, because he has no business in creative, because the company proved how much better they are without him in creative when he was gone. And in the build-up to WrestleMania, the build-up to this WrestleMania was the best build-up to any WrestleMania over the last decade, and it had nothing to do with Vince McMahon. The company is better off without Vince handling the day-to-day operations with the company is better off without Vince handling programming. Every aspect of it, the company is better off without Vince handling programming. And if Vince has anything to do with programming, now the company will be worse off than they were, because Vince is selfish and only gives a damn about himself. But that fact will be proven, or that opinion will be proven on SmackDown if Vince is there at Portland. If Vince is not, then I will eat my words. If Vince does not show up for SmackDown in Portland, on Saturday, I will apologize and eat my words, because I will be counting my blessings that Vince is not as selfish as we thought, and he actually does care about the future of WWE and what's best for the company, because what's best for the company is for him not to have anything to do in creative, because he doesn't have a damn clue what's going on at this point or what is best for WWE if he is still having to do anything with creative. But I thought I would be able to get through that without ranting and raving, but apparently I care too much. And the fact of the matter is, a number of top stars, according to reports, would ask for their release. One, according to, I believe, PW Insider, one person who is said to be near the top of the card would request a release if Vince is back as the head of creative. And a lot of the members of the women's division are disappointed or would be disappointed with Vince back in control. It says a lot when you're that disappointed that you would ask for your release because somebody who you work for is back in control. That should have a lot to do with it and have something that bears in mind, because it should give some consideration, and Vince should put his ego aside and do what is best for the company if there are people that are genuinely thinking about requesting for their release, and that people are genuinely disappointed that he's back in control of creative because he is that incompetent and doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Pardon my French. That should be taken into consideration. Because he should do what is best for the company and stay away from a weekly program and leave it to Triple H, because Triple H and Nick Khan proved that they are more than capable of running the company without Vince's help. They don't need him. They don't need him. Is it official that any, member of the roster would give their release? No official member of the roster has given their release yet. No. Do I dispute the idea that people would give their release? No, I completely think that people would ask for their release. The one thing I would say that I saw some news article, or not news articles, I apologize, comment sections. Some comments on, I believe it was yesterday's Cultaholic News video, where they spoke about the idea of certain Triple H guys not being used, like Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross has not been used in the last couple of weeks because WWE was building up to WrestleMania. WWE was building up to WrestleMania, and that is the sole reason why Karrion Kross was not used. Because if you look in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, Karrion Kross was in the Battle Royal. Karrion Kross had not been used because he was not going to be featured at WrestleMania. If he is not used in the coming weeks or months after the fact, that's different. But the fact of the matter is, WWE should not shy away from a long-term plan and having a long-term plan for certain talent, because Bray Wyatt should not be allowed back if there is no long-term plan for him, creatively. Karrion Kross, same thing. If you do not have a long-term plan for them, send them somewhere where you would, which is the benefit of having a developmental territory, and it would be the benefit of having partnerships with other companies, so you could send them to other companies and have them work for other companies, and then when you think of an idea for them to come back, then they come back. Simple as that. Simple as that. Like, if you want to send Karrion Kross down to NXT and have him be who he was in NXT, again, that would not be the worst idea. It might be a bad idea now because Carmelo Hayes has just won the belt. But if over the summer you want to reinvigorate NXT by sending Karrion Kross down and having him work back in NXT, guess what? That would not be a terrible idea. But the fact of the matter is, if Bray does not have a long-term plan, don't bring him back. Keep him away. Keep him away. Simple as that. Would I be surprised if people left or requested their release and that be how WWE wises up and keeps Vince away from the weekly programming? No. I would admire the fact that WWE wrestlers would be that willing to leave because they show that would be a show of solidarity of them showing how little faith they have in the creative direction of Vince McMahon and how much faith they have in the creative direction of Triple H. Simple as that. 2 small updates on MLW, and then we will jump to WWE. Then we will jump to AEW, but also Brock Lesnar, and speaking to Daniel Cormier, spoke about the possibility of fighting Gunther, and he said he would love to fight Gunther at some point, but I just want to point out, in my opinion, Gunther in that dream match should win. It is unquestionable that Gunther in that dream match should win. There would be no reason for Brock to win. There would be no reason for Brock to win a dream match against Gunther because Gunther is on the upward trajectory. Brock is on the downward trajectory. Adding another match to Battle Royale on Saturday, April 8th, Billy Starks against Mandy Leon, as that adds to Jacob Fatu and Ricky Shane Page, Shigehiro Iri defending the WXW Unified World Wrestling Championship against Calvin Tankman, the 40-man Battle Royal for the future MLW Championship match, and the triple threat match for the National Openweight Championship, John Hennigan versus Leo Rush versus Willie Mack, and, if that wasn't enough, on the 418 edition of MLW on Reels, it will be the War Chamber match. The War Chamber match will be featured on Reels on the April 18th edition of MLW on Reels. That match will include the Alex Hammerstone, Mance Warner, and One Cold Manders, and Matthew Justice against The Calling, which is Akira Raven and 2 other people whose names are eluding me. It is the first time ever that New York City will host the War Chamber. War Chamber is a carbon steel chamber with the perimeter and the top fortified with barbed wire. So I guess it's a variation of the War Games match. A coin toss will determine who enters first, 1-on-1 with 5. It's a variation of the War Games match. But instead of just being a normal steel cage, it has barbed wire across the top of it. But that match will be featured on the April 18th edition of MLW on Reels. And also tonight, if you have forgotten, Tony Khan has a major announcement tonight set for Dynamite. And it will be an announcement that is set to change the face of AEW. So stay tuned for that. Tony did not disappoint with the last announcement, so I don't know if he will disappoint with this one. With that being said, though, that is it for the news, and I will see you in the next one.